Welcome back. I'm happy to see you back on my channel. We're back again with the series How Not to Win. Here we analyze various YouTube videos about what characters from horror movies could do to survive. Imagine that you are stuck in your apartment during a zombie apocalypse. It's dangerous business walking out your front door. There are bloodthirsty zombies everywhere. The streets echo with the screams of the innocent. Blood flows everywhere. The smell of rotting flesh hangs in the air. Food and water supplies are limited, and now you can't even trust yourself. The main character of the 2020 film Alive found himself in this exact situation. Fortunately, or perhaps not, YouTube has our back. It is inundated with videos about surviving a zombie apocalypse. The Miss Horror channel released a video with zombie survival tips. The creator seemed to be nostalgic for the events of spring 2020, so they decided to go back to scenario of a dangerous pandemic. Yes, they dug so deep that relying on their #stay-home experience, they could give out survival tips. Even if we are dealing with the much more dangerous event of a zombie pandemic, well, we'll have to listen to what this expert has to say. But you shouldn't take everything they say on board. After all, the person behind the channel is clearly lacking in experience when it comes to zombie apocalypses. Would they even be able to survive one? Before we hear their genius advice, let's remind ourselves of the plot of the movie Alive. Imagine such a sweet guy. The young Jun-woo is a typical slacker. He doesn't really care about anything. Jun-woo was expecting to spend another day playing video games as he usually does, but suddenly, there is a zombie virus outbreak in Seoul. It all happened so suddenly. 1 minute, nobody knew about the virus. The next, every TV channel was shouting about it, and a crowd of zombies had already gathered under Junwoo's windows. The epidemic is spreading very quickly. How long did it take for the coronavirus to spread? It all started with isolated cases. Is Junwoo such a shut-in that he didn't notice what was going on? The first piece of advice in the video is to barricade your doors and windows from the inside or the outside. Barricade yourself from the outside? What? How is he supposed to move the cabinet or any other heavy object to the door from the outside while in the room? Even if he managed to do this, how would it stop the zombies from getting in? Meanwhile, his neighbors have already been infected and are hammering at his door. It wasn't easy, but he manages to barricade himself inside his apartment. However, for some reason, he lets his neighbor into the apartment. He had to go to the toilet. The commentator tells us that it is dangerous to invite friends over during a zombie apocalypse. However, he's already in the apartment. It goes without saying that the neighbor has been infected. What can you do in this situation? Miss Horror doesn't give any advice on this at all. It's better to ignore the facts and tell you what to do if your neighbor turned out to be a regular guy. Anyway, what should you do if you were alone in your apartment with the limited food? Oh, and he doesn't have any drinking water either. Junwoo barricaded himself inside his apartment, but he doesn't have many supplies. And he finds out from the news that he'll have to stay there for at least another 60 days. Ms. Horror suggests rationing the food you have into small portions. It should last longer this way. We all know that you need strength and energy to survive. How many zombies can you kill on a diet of 2 pieces of bread a day? The video claims that he has enough food to survive 10 days, but he needs to survive for 60. What is the advice here? Ms. Horror believes that people could come after his supplies, or he may have to go raid a neighbor's fridge himself. But is hunger their biggest problem? This is a zombie apocalypse, not a Snickers ad. Then Junwoo goes on Instagram for some reason. He manages to get online. His phone goes dead. Ms. Horror criticizes him for wasting his battery. Of course, we should have expected a zombie apocalypse to come along and knock the power out. The person running this channel is probably already living in a bunker. Ms. Horror then suggests using a drone to see what's going on outside. You just have to make sure no zombies break in while you're doing this. Another tip, if you don't see any zombies, then you can climb down the rail. What if the zombie is in another room or is in some place that the drone cannot see? Just go over and see the zombie? Go round for dinner? Which happens to be your own brains? No thank you. Junwoo looks out the window and sees a police officer shooting at a zombie. He misses and almost hits Junwoo. What advice do we have for this? Well, We could say not to loiter about in the window while shooting is going on, but we won't. Junwoo covers the window so that people could not see in. But this seems like a bad idea to us. We won't be able to see the zombies. And why would you want to see them anyway? The door keeps the zombies out. It's not for him to think about the people outside. It's every man for himself. Is it really such a bad idea? Miss Horror doesn't answer this question. They show that Junwoo has used part of a mask to cover up the window and is peeking out through it. This should allow him to see the zombies and other survivors outside. This idea isn't so great. If a bit of paper falls off, the zombies would be able to see you, and inviting in other survivors is a pretty bad idea. After all, who's to say that they have not been infected? Later on, we see another mistake committed by a police officer. Using a gun. It's too loud. It will only attract more zombies, but it would be a waste not to use the weapons you have available to you. Perhaps if the cop had been more alert and faster, she would have survived. The thing is not to act a fool and let the zombies come to you. They offer the suggestion of using a golf club, for example. However, to use such a weapon, we would have to get within striking distance of the zombie, putting ourselves in danger. How many zombies can you kill with it? How about a pistol with plenty of ammo? I think the latter would be better for dealing with a large horde of the Walking Dead. Where else did the police lady go wrong? Ms. Horror claims that there was no point in her running through the zombie-filled streets. She didn't run to the car or to a safe house. She should have ran over to any car in hope that there would be keys in there. But how many cars would she have to check? This is not a kid's cartoon where you can hotwire a car in 5 seconds. Police officers probably aren't used to stealing cars. She needed to have a clear plan of action. Do you think the zombies would have waited for her to dream it up? Junwoo sees the revolver left by the dead officer on the street. Ms. Horror does not advise going down to collect weapons in any case. After all, what if the ammo has all been used up? And if not, there's no point in doing anything to improve the situation. What if it goes wrong? Junwoo's plan is interrupted by a huge zombie breaking into his apartment. The video approves of Junwoo's idea to lure the zombie over to the balcony so that it falls off, and it worked. How about an alternative? Miss Horror refuses. What if Junwoo had fallen? What if the zombie was strong enough to pull him over? But there were no what-ifs. The plan worked out once again, and once again, bad advice was given. This video shouldn't have been called How to Defeat All of the Zombies, but How to Hide Out Until the Zombies Run Away if they don't eat you first. If you don't take any risks, how will you survive? And not to call out anyone in particular, but cowards die first. Junwoo records a video message for whoever finds his camera, but even this goes against the advice. After all, it's a sign of giving up, but this is a bit much. We all have moments of weakness. We are human. Perhaps this is his way of getting things off his chest, which would actually help him to keep fighting. Junwoo remembers that the emergency phone line works whether or not you have a connection. But the phone isn't designed for those who want to survive the crisis with their headphones. At least you can listen to music. Then Junwoo has a few drinks to relax, and we are treated to an entertaining lecture on the dangers of alcohol in emergency situations. Yes, drinking is bad for you, but everyone has their vice, especially to stay sane during a zombie apocalypse. Junwoo has a vision while he's drunk. He sees members of his family. When he snaps out of it, he realizes he is alone. He has a tantrum. He wants to send a message to his family, so he holds his selfie stick up over the balcony in hope of getting some service on his phone. Meanwhile, a bunch of zombies are crowding around under the balcony. The message isn't going through. Junwoo gets angry and takes it out on the zombies. Miss Horror claims that there are too many zombies and that Junwoo cannot take them all on. But sooner or later, he's going to have to go out and fight them, or he would starve to death. Junwoo starts shouting and making a lot of noise, which attracts even more zombies. The advice is to kill the zombies from a safe distance. For example, you could drop heavy objects on them from the balcony. So, where was this advice when Junwoo was still in his apartment? It is only when Junwoo leaves his apartment that he is enlightened on how to set zombie traps. If you're at home, then Junwoo makes zombie traps. The Walking Dead are attracted to noise, so Junwoo uses music as bait. But his morale is in decline, and he has decided to end his torment with a noose. Some motivational phrases from the narrator and a laser shining a light on Junwoo's face bring back his will to live. He looks out of his window and sees a girl with binoculars in the building across the street. they start to help each other out. She sends Junwoo some food using the clothesline hanging between their two balconies. Junwoo saved the girl from a zombie that almost climbed onto her balcony while she was sleeping. Ms. Horror thinks this scene is funny, but she doesn't tell us what she would have done in this situation. Junwoo decides to go outside, encouraged by the presence of another survivor. He wears thick clothing and wraps tape around his legs to protect himself from zombie bites. Junwoo gathers everything he needs. Ms. Horror pays attention to detail and picks up on other things in the room that he could have used. All of them would be useful for survival. Unfortunately, Junwoo did not have a truck in his cupboard as a basic necessity. Running away from zombies with a heavy backpack is a lot harder than it seems. Junwoo and the girl jump out of their windows and fight off their zombies. Meanwhile, Ms. Horror reminds us that good physical training is essential for surviving a zombie apocalypse. The pair find themselves in an apartment building lift. They go up to the 18th floor and try to find open apartments without success. A zombie sees them and calls the rest of his friends over to chase them. Junwoo tries to keep them at bay while the girl, Yubin, searches for an open apartment. Fortunately, she finds one. Another survivor joins them in this apartment. This should be something worth celebrating, but Ms. Horror is skeptical. Another survivor could steal their stuff or kill them. But why would he do that? He's not a zombie. His goal is to survive, and this is much more difficult to do alone. Junwoo and Yubin themselves are wary of this newcomer. They even refuse to drink his water, and they really needed it. But he drinks it first, which dispels their doubts. He gives his new friends something to eat and drink. He tells them about what he heard on the radio. It turns out that the rescue teams are already looking for survivors. They can tell from the family photos in the apartment that this guy has not been in this apartment for long. Then they go to sleep. It turns out that their new friend is not so kind. He was planning to feed his new companions to his zombie wife. What a twist! Junwoo and Yubin are still resting. The man dragged Yubin into his wife's room. Yubin wakes up to a zombie on a leash trying to devour her. Ms. Horror points out that the man could have killed Yubin before feeding her to his wife, but I don't think he is really capable of murder. Junwoo threatens the guy with a gun and demands that he let Yubin go. Ms. Horror says that he should have killed him and saved Yubin himself, but going into a room with a zombie seems like a suicide mission. He grabs its leash, which is sticking out from under the door. Everything goes quiet. The man runs into the room to check on his wife. Yubin sets the zombie on her own husband. Then she kills both of them with a pistol. The gunshots attract the zombie horde. Ms. Horror notes that this was a bad move, but they needed to kill the man and the zombie as soon as possible. The desperate survivors know that it is impossible to avoid the army of zombies. They decide to commit suicide. But just then, helicopters fly by. This gives them new hope. Ms. Horror suggests taking a white blanket and hanging it out the window to attract attention. They go up to the roof, which is also a good way to attract attention. But the helicopters have already gone. Junwoo shouts after it in desperation, crying out for help. The zombies make it up to the roof. Junwoo shoots at them until he runs out of bullets. Now, they are ready to die at the hands of the zombies. Suddenly, a helicopter flies over the roof. The plan worked. Junwoo's phone gets service and he sees that his family has survived. The film comes to a happy ending. They are alive and they found each other in their struggle to survive. And they didn't need any survival tips. There's nothing left to say about the film. They survived, found happiness, and will start a new life. What isn't clear is why anyone thought that they needed survival tips in the first place. Have you seen this movie? Do you think you could survive a zombie apocalypse? Write your answers in the comments.